SpaceX versus Clarity Day. We're going to break it down for you. A lot happening, not only with the SpaceX IPO, but how Clarity is going to be playing into all of this. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital, where you guys can get moving on getting into a crypto IRA, because right now is the time you want to look at long-term. Diversifying assets, whether you're in gold, silver, crypto, this is one of the best tools out there, and that is building an IRA. It builds wealth for you in the future. The idea here is get started. You can transfer an IRA in, or you can start one brand new and get going. Let's get into a couple of tweets here today. I want to lead off with this one right here, where 200 crypto companies are now sending an emergency letter to the United States Senate demanding an immediate vote on the Clarity Act. So pretty much every major company in the United States is pushing this, of course, being propped up by the Blockchain Association and, of course, the Digital Chamber. You can kind of see all of the proponents right there. Stand with Crypto, Crypto Council for Innovation. This is going, of course, over to John Thune's office and Mr. Schumer himself. So this is, I think, the line in the sand, guys, where the crypto industry is concerned that maybe there is something that is brewing in these negotiations that is not landing. I imagine this is going to be more on the ethics side of things. And speaking of that, the administration official now is going to host this law enforcement groups, which are really talking about the idea that crypto, if we don't get this under control in terms of a clarity, it becomes a national security issue, and that law enforcement is actually saying, hey, actually, this is good for tracking the bad guys. And the issue, along with ethics, remains one of the major sticking points that must be resolved before lawmakers can take this bill to the Senate. This would be an interesting situation right here, because with ethics, really, I think, being one of the lines in the sand that the Democrats are pushing against, the fact that you now have law enforcement saying this is really a national security issue, it's also a good way for us to catch bad guys. I think if you have senators now voting against this or pushing back from it, it's as if they are pushing back on getting bad guys. So there's a lot that I think this coming out is a very unique timing, because this, of course, is being pushed by the administration, which is definitely not wanting to look at the ethics side of things. So they're using this as a good tactic. All right, another thing that's happening right now, the Ways and Means on the Republican side is rolling out 6 standalone bills, and this is all in reference to tax on crypto. It addresses donations, mining, staking, reporting requirements, tax treatment parity, voluntary disclosure, and all of this is being applied existing anti-abuse rules for digital assets. So this is getting going. This, I think, will be one of the major areas that we need to pay a close attention to as it starts to brew in DC. The interesting point I have is that we're seeing this right now without having clarity in play, which of course is going to affect a lot of investors around what we're dealing with here. This could be a big challenge, I think, for crypto in the future if we don't get clarity. Galaxy, though, Galaxy Digital, has now lowered their Clarity Act odds in terms of passing down to 60%. They were at a 75%. This, of course, has been touted as one of the companies, I think, that had the most realistic probability. And I don't know that I agreed that 75% was necessarily there, even though there were times, I think, during this that it felt pretty solid that this was going to happen. This, of course, is now starting to slide down. So when you consider that, the clarity potential of not passing, and you have AI pretty much sucking up a lot of what we're seeing in terms of liquidity escape right now, I want to play a clip for you. This is Bitwise talking about that. Take a look.
And right now, they're all focused on AI. And that makes sense, right? The AI trade is ripping. If you turn on CNBC or Fox Business News or any mainstream media, financial media outlet, all they're talking about is how long could this AI rally last? Or some AI stock is up 30% on the day, which typically doesn't happen in equities with big name stocks, right? That's a crypto thing. And so when financial advisors are seeing that and their clients are asking, hey, do we have exposure to this AI trend? It's easier for them to say, look, we're not talking about crypto right now. We're not thinking about crypto right now. I'm focused on this. And it's a more difficult decision for them to make to allocate to crypto when you have uncertainty around price action, when you see things like Bitcoin ETF outflows, when you're not sure if the Clarity Act is going to pass or not in the next 2 months, it's easier just to sit on the sideline and allocate to something like the AI trade or the Qs or something that's index based that gives you that kind of exposure. So I do think it's sucking the air out of the room. You also have the SpaceX IPO, Anthropic, OpenAI. All of these things are top of mind for investors. Crypto is not top of mind for most investors right now. And I think you're seeing that reflected in the level of demand we're seeing from most traditional investors.
Yeah, and demand is falling dramatically across exchanges. We're seeing the wipeout now across stocks, metals, and crypto. 1.8 trillion wiped out in the last hour. And you also have the S&P down 1.62. So what you're seeing is some of the profits being taken out of stocks that they may have traded over the last year, and they're going into basically dry powder, looking at an opportunity here for some of the upswing that either SpaceX, Anthropic, OpenAI are all going to generate, and that will most likely include a lot of other companies that kind of come with that. So NASDAQ down 2.5, gold is down almost 2%, silver down almost 6, Russell 2000 down 2%. That's a significant amount on the Russell 2000. And then Bitcoin, of course, down 2 right there at 28 billion. So you look at fear and greed right now, it is definitely in the fear zone, and this is on traditional assets. And this concerns me a little bit because this will get into a very volatile scenario that will play out through the end of this week. So mark my words, I think we're in for a bit of a rough tumble here going into this. And there's other things that are happening right now. Claude is launching Mythos. That will most likely cost something. We're going to drop a video on that. But also you've got to concern yourself of what the trajectory is for the alpha asset in the class. And of course, that is Bitcoin. Take a look at this.
I think where we are is sort of classic mid-cycle. So, halfway through the bear market year, which arguably started in October of 2025. I think, we hear things like headlines about Michael Saylor, selling his Bitcoin, and that concerns the market. But actually, what's happening is we're in a structural bear market.
So what tells you this is a cycle and not something structurally worse?
If we come to the end of 2026 and we're not seeing some improvement in Bitcoin's price and momentum really gaining so that we're heading back to the all-time high of 126K and sort of everyone starts talking about moving to 200K, then I think we can be concerned, because to this point, these Bitcoin cycles have really worked like clockwork.
All right, so there you have it. I mean, some analysts kind of pointing at this. I was kind of perplexed on her analysis there that we should be at the all-time high heading toward 200K. I don't know that that is in the cards with everything from a macro side of things. Remember, guys, we still have a very hot economy. This is going to put pressure on the Fed. You also have what's going on in Iran, which is going to be a delayed reaction on the supply chain side, especially around energy. That, I think, is still flowing out. And then you have AI, and some companies are doing it right. Some companies are absolutely falling on their face, which I think also represents a certain amount of problems in the market as well. Here is Apple, which fell almost 5% after unveiling its biggest AI update so far, which is essentially is Gemini. It's been in there for quite some time. If you guys have asked Siri anything, maybe I don't want to say that because Siri's probably listening now. But the point being is that it defaults over, do you want to hear that coming from Gemini? And I think now you're going to see a lot more of this. The problem is that these bolt-on tactics from Apple, man, Steve Jobs is probably just rolling over on this one. I just don't understand it. 230 billion wiped out off of its market cap. This is not good for Apple investors because it doesn't show a roadmap going forward. It shows them as a bolt-on in the biggest technology frontier that has ever been created. I think this is a major mistake for Apple. SpaceX pre-IPO perps now are surging across crypto exchanges, and you see this right here on SPX. Futures now at 525 million in the last 24, continuing to grow. Right now, Binance currently accounts for the largest share, around 287 million in the 24-hour volume, and about 124 million in open interest. So big growth here. This only shows me that there is an appetite for SpaceX, at least on the degen side of it, when you look at perps. And I think the real question is will there be an appetite on the retail side of it, people who are not necessarily looking at short-term games, maybe they're looking at this more long-term, playing into, of course, this IPO getting ready to hit. Tom Lee has a different opinion about this, and I think there's a reason why. I'll reveal it in a second, but take a look at this clip.
There is going to be a lot of tension in markets until June 12th, because I'd say there's a very large camp of our institutional investor clients that would say SpaceX is going to be the market top. So they're anticipating the markets to wobble. So what they're going to do is take profits and be cautious onto that date. But I'd say that history shows that the SpaceX IPO should not actually mark the market top. It's actually rare a big IPO marks a top. So to us, I think it's actually misplaced concerns. There's still $7 trillion of cash on the sidelines, and we already know the book's been filled. High net worth clients have a lot of cash available to buy this IPO. So I think the market's going to not only absorb this IPO really well, but I think the market's going to do well post-IPO.
If you only had a fixed amount of money, Tom, would you invest in these IPOs?
These are some of the most important companies led by what they call N of one people. I mean, I don't know if there will be another Elon Musk in our generation. So for investors who have not owned Tesla, this is a chance for them to have exposure to Elon Musk and all of what he's envisioned. And again, the addressable market for AI and especially data center, and as you move into space, is actually sizable.
So you've got Tom kind of looking at that, and remember that Tom Lee has a huge dog in the race in Ethereum. So this does affect the crypto market if you see liquidity starting to pour into what this is doing right now with the SpaceX IPO. The real question will be how can it hold, and if it can hold. And we're talking about the SpaceX IPO along with what will eventually be the Anthropic IPO, and then what will come next is the OpenAI confidentially filing for an IPO. So you've got all of these playing into this. Some are AI plays, some, of course, like Tom is talking about, is a space play, but really it's an AI play because we're talking about data centers. That is going to be one of the biggest areas for SpaceX, and at least in the front emerging section of space, because next up will be commerce and shipping and all sorts of growth, because all the companies that will want to grow into that are essentially going to have to use SpaceX. All right, so Joe Lonsdale from Palantir kind of broke down something that I think is interesting. And what he's angling in on is what is the value and the dependency in the market on this? Take a look.
That we're going to see like a massive pop out of the gate.
Oh, gosh.
The reason I'm asking is it feels like so many of the other IPOs that could come this fall or even later this summer are so dependent on whatever happens in the immediate aftermath of this, no?
You know, it's interesting. There probably is some effect where crypto probably, some of the liquidity probably is going into SpaceX and Anthropic and all these other things coming up. Right?
If you could buy SpaceX, Anthropic, or OpenAI, which would you buy?
I have bought SpaceX and Anthropic, actually. I'll tell you that. I think those are the two strongest right now, by far. And you know, listen, we're rooting for OpenAI not to implode. So I think hopefully it stays strong too.
Well, do you have fear it's going to implode?
I don't want to spread fears. I think that the other two in the strongest position by far. OpenAI was probably doing too much and lost some talent, but it's still a very impressive company. You know, I think Anthropic clearly has the momentum behind it and is the strongest, because I think the infrastructure SpaceX represents is just bidding on Elon is obviously the thing to do. So I think those are the strongest companies by far.
Lonsdale also went on to say that some of the sell-off that is coming out of crypto, that is, of course, aligning with liquidity. But back to Tom Lee's clip there, $7 trillion sitting on the sidelines. This, of course, is high net worth individuals. The question is, how will people play this? Because to me, this is like a bet. And of course, SpaceX being the first one, Anthropic, I would agree with Lonsdale there, is that those are probably the two to watch the most in terms of the most to gain. Whether or not we see a super cycle or a continuation of this run right now, which many people are concerned this might be the top, is still up in the air. If you compare this, look at this number right here. The SpaceX IPO is on Thursday, $1.75 trillion. The entire global aerospace and defense industry is sitting at the same. Look at that. I mean, those are some big companies in there. I'll kind of zoom on those. You've got Honeywell, Rolls-Royce in there, Airbus, Boeing, RTX, GE Aerospace. Those are all lined up against one company. That's why it is so important to the entire stock market, because these are the kind of things that are, of course, changing the game. And we're dealing with one of the biggest category shifts in our lifetime, which was kind of referenced there in that clip, and that, of course, is AI. Other things that are happening is the performance gap with tech stocks now at historic levels. Top 20% of U.S. tech stocks outperform the bottom 20 by 120%. So it's really getting into an interesting point here. And the comparison they use here is that this difference peaked at 135% percentage points during the 2000.com bubble. Now, of course, you're dealing with this spread, which is quadrupled over the last year. So I don't know. This is all outpacing. And granted, it's different than, I know it's different than the dot-com bubble. Those were a lot of blue sky numbers. There was no real revenues with those companies. Most of them were going public without revenue at all. I mean, so this is a big difference, at least on some of the companies that rise to the top of this category, which is the top 20%. Elon is 161 billion away from becoming a trillionaire. Man, that is insane. And there's nobody even close. I mean, come on. Larry Page, Bezos, Zuck, Jensen over at NVIDIA. Nobody's even close to catching this guy. He is on his way. And can you imagine that he literally came out of Tesla he was on literally on the edge of bankruptcy, where they couldn't make payroll for Tesla. That of course was the catapult that put all of this in motion. Do you guys think that's a good thing? Do you think we need a trillionaire? Do you need that in these markets? Because of course this is going to drive innovation on almost everything you can imagine. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Another clip here is important because now we're getting into very critical points for an Iranian deal. I mean, we got the 250th American birthday coming up in July, less than 1 month away. And if Trump doesn't get a deal done before then, I think it's a lot of egg on his face. Watch this clip.
We could have at least an idea by 1 or 2 days from now, but the blockade continues to hold 100%. We had a very good conversation, and he was hit, and he hit back. They both agreed through me to stop. And we're in the final throes of what will be a very, very good deal. Strait will open up right away. It'll open up immediately upon signing, which could be in 2 or 3 days.
That's President Trump on the recent strikes between Israel and Iran as Israel responded to Iranian strikes Sunday. These exchanges back and forth, the first since an April ceasefire, the president remaining optimistic a deal could come within the week with Iran, but Hezbollah and Lebanon are still out there. Oil prices this morning are pulling back. Take a look at the price of crude, back below $90 a barrel, down 2% at $89.16. The U.S. blockade in the Strait of Hormuz remains in place, and CENTCOM is redirecting more than 130 vessels since April 13th.
All right, so there you have it. Energy down. You have Trump, of course, claiming a deal is imminent 37 times. I don't know, guys. Can you believe this right now is the question. Is this the 38th time? Is this the secret special sauce of getting this deal done? All right, one consideration would be that this could get parceled out. And what I mean by that is the Strait of Hormuz issue is the one that is the most critical because it affects so many economies, including the U.S. around fuel and energy prices. But they could actually get a deal done for the Strait, not necessarily get a deal done for the nuclear situation in Iran, which could end up going post-midterms because it really boils down to prices at the pump right now for midterms. So that, I think, is what he's shooting for. And also for him to be able to kind of claim a win on July 4th, which is going to be the big celebration. BlackRock is warning Wednesday's CPI print forecast at 4.2 year over year. This is the highest since 23. Could be the first sign of a U.S.-Iran energy shock. This is another factor that we've talked about a lot here on the show, and that is that these kind of supply chains are going to be rolling into shortages. And that could be a major concern because that's when markets will react. That, of course, could be an issue as well. One last thing is, where will the rate hikes be? If there are going to be some right now, it's a 55% chance. Do you guys think that Warsh will overshadow what Trump has been touting for so long, saying that he was going to do, and end up raising rates? Let me know what you guys think. We're going to be covering this and more, so stay tuned. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and also join our free private member group. The link is in the description.